So I started StickmanCyber about 20 years ago, right? So, and before that, about 10 to 15 years prior to that, I was also running another company back in India. That's where I was born. And I've been in IT from a very early age of my life, right? Um, I got into cyber by chance about 22 years ago. I was working on a project for a large company, and they said, "Oh, there's something called payment card security. We have no idea. Can you help us?" And I got involved. I got really excited about it. Then, before I knew, I started StickmanCyber. It was the company is actually called Stickman Consulting, but we rebranded to StickmanCyber because that's what we've been doing for the last 20 years. So today, my purpose is to educate you, show you what is possible, uh, what to expect as startups. I also have a startup. That's how I'm part of the university. We're building a platform for cyber compliance and risk and cybersecurity, and that's how we got involved with the university. So, and most of our customers we work with, about 80% are startup scale-ups, right? So we understand the pain. And I thought this will be a good exercise as an education process to educate if you're in the early stage and how we can help. So the theme today is on your mark, ready, set, go, right? So, startup life is quite like that. You're on the front lines, you're ready to start, then something happens, then you're trying to move along the journey of building a startup. You're trying to raise money, or you're trying to bootstrap it, do it yourself. You're trying to win customers, and then suddenly something called security comes, lands on your lap, right? So, sorry, I just have to. Sorry, I did something here. Oh, yeah, good idea. Perfect. I was thinking I was getting my feedback here. So, when I started 20 years ago, actually, this statement is from that history. Only big banks would come knock at your door, or big corporates would come knock. Even corporates, very rarely. Mostly big banks would come knock at your door saying, "Hey, what are you doing about cybersecurity?" Right? Have you done ISO 27001? So, the most important thing is cybersecurity is not no longer just risk management, right? It's become a condition to do business, right? And many startup scale ups, unfortunately miss this because you're so focused on either capital raising, winning a new customer, attracting the right talent to help you build your startup. Security becomes second thought, right? And it's like, you build the whole house and then you say, "Oh, we forgot to put locks and doors to this house. Let's find somebody to come build that," right? And it's kind of retrofitting security onto the platform what you built, right? So normally what happens is, you know your customers are become your auditors, right? Even our customers audit us, though we do their security work, we get audited today, right? So the whole life cycle, the ecosystem, it's like I audit you, you audit the next person, the other person audits you, and it's become a ecosystem of literal auditors, right? So things like send us your security questionnaire. Are you ISO compliant? What happens if you're breached? Do you have an incident response plan? It's like, when you walked into this building, you might have seen some signs, which would say, "In case of fire, meet at so and so location." That's an incident response plan in the physical world, right? In the cyber world, we say, "Okay, I'm too small. I don't think I'll get breached, so I'll just keep continuing to run my business," right? And when it hits, then you're like, "Oh, what do I do about this," right? Can we see your security policy is the next possible question they would ask, right? So these things become very uncomfortable for startups when they start their journey to sorry, I think, is my audio still echoing?
Standing. I think it's just because you're standing in front of the speakers. There's just
Okay.
reverberation there. If you move them ahead in a little bit.
Okay. Can I use this to move my slides? Forward and backward.
This one.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's good. I can stand this side and I can look at the slides too. That's cool. So this is 94% of small Australian businesses experience a cyber incident in the last year, right? That company, what you see up there, this doesn't work. Okay, so the second one, we say UX breach, right? About 5 years ago, we helped this company become compliant. Like they did a security questionnaire with us. We helped them with their ISO compliance. They said, that's fine. Thank you very much. We've got a certificate. We'll see you later, right? We never heard from them. 4 years later, they're in the news, right? 440,000 Australian customers attacked, right? So it's not about if, it's about when, right? So, and with a startup, obviously, you're constantly thinking, hang on, do I start spending money on security now? Like the gentleman here on my left said that, yeah, I want to see how can build security right from the beginning, not after the fact, right? So this is happening for real, right? It's no more about if, it's about when, right? So, so you have to think about, okay, security has to scale with me, right? If I'm building a tent outside and living, right, to building a small house to a big house to a multi-story building. So think of it like that, right? So your pre-seed minimum viable product to a funded startup to a scale up, right? As you grow, your dynamics of your business grows, right? So I always recommend startups to think like in the physical world, right? So the faster you go in a car, the more security and protection you need, right? You can't take a very basic car and then go on a Grand Prix, for example. The car will break, right? So the same concept, you're building a startup, what do you need bare minimum, right? You got at that early stage, like really, really early stage, you haven't even written a piece of code, but you just have a laptop, right? And you're building something, right? And you've got a small team. So you look at identity, backups, basic hygiene. It's cheap now, but painful to fit later. So suddenly you get funding, you hire 20, 30 people, and when I started the business, till about 10 people, we were okay. The moment we started crossing 15, 20, 25 people, it becomes a nightmare to manage because I've given you a laptop, everybody works remotely, right? I don't know who's logging in when, what access do you have, how are you going to keep track of it, right? And then you build stuff for the outside world, and most startups we walk in, we see that the developers will have access to the dev, test, production, sandbox environment, everything, and they use shared passwords across every single system. Right there is your risk. So if someone breaches, it's like you're given the keys to the kingdom, right? Once you hand over the keys to the kingdom, then the hacker can then get into your dev environment, your production environment. The other mistakes many startups do is they launch a product, it's pretty cool, production environment is running, humming along. They say, oh, we've got to build new features. Let's copy the production data into the test environment and build new features and test it on the production data. So now you have live customer data working, sitting on your test platforms or your development platforms, and you're doing testing, which also becomes a dual risk. So it's not just data bit like for you in your case, if you're doing a ticketing system and I go into your platform, okay, I say I want tickets for Taylor Swift show or whatever else. I'm putting my credit card details, my email, my phone number, my first name, last name, and then if you take that data and put it into your test environment or your development environment, you're now taking live production data to test, right? So there are tools you can use to replicate your production data. You don't have to use your production data. So these are the things you have to look out. Once you get to that funded state, even investors are saying, okay, I'm going to put my money into your business. I want to know what your cybersecurity plan is, right? Because I don't want my money to go in the drain because you have a breach, because the cost of the breach is more expensive always. 100 times, 100% of the times, the cost of the breach is always greater than the cost of the security. It's like we have said this enough. I've said it for 20 years. But people are, oh, do I really need to spend this money now? And it's like insurance, right? You drive the car, third-party insurance, compulsory third-party insurance you take. I know many people, I was a student. I was wary of taking, a comprehensive insurance, and somebody, banged into my car and went away. I couldn't claim, so it came out of my pocket, right? Yes.
Ajay, you said the cost of the breach is higher than the cost of the security. What goes into the cost of the breach?
Yeah.
What is that cost to a startup?
Yeah. So let's say I'm going to take you as an example. Don't assume that I'm not treating you as a guinea pig, but let's take anyone for example. You have a live system running. You have 1,000 to 2,000 customers on that system, right? Let's go back to this example, right? Can someone take out a calculator, please? Do 444,000 times $200. Just do that number and tell me how much it comes up to. And do we need AI for that? 88 million. Okay, there you go, right? So what is $200, right? This is a simple mathematics I've always used for business cases. So before I started StickmanCyber, I was on the client side convincing my own businesses who hired me to run large projects, saying we need to invest in security, and they're like, oh, why? So I went and did my own research. This number hasn't changed for 20 years. That's the funny part. It's still $200. And $200 is the cost of legal cost, investigation cost, forensic cost, writing to all these 440,000 customers saying that, hey, we've had your data breached. Your marketing department starts becoming your incident response team because you don't have people, or you shut down your business, basically. There are businesses in Melbourne, I forgot the name of the business. They were a financial services company similar to this. They had to shut down. They had no money. They completely wiped out, right? So it's not about creating fear. It's about creating awareness, right? It's not like, oh, I can't start a startup now because cyber is too expensive. No, it's not expensive. It's like, like any example, right? Oh, let's go to that restaurant. Oh, it's too expensive. But what is the definition of expensive? You want to have a good night out, you have to decide, okay, can I have a good night out without spending too much money? It's same concept, right? If we don't invest into understanding what it is, and we stay away from saying, oh, it's too expensive, but has someone even done an assessment of what that definition of expensive looks like, right? Are you protecting one computer? Are you protecting 10? Are you protecting a cloud environment with hundreds of terabytes of data? Now you start doing the math, right? If for every ticket, let's say you sell, each ticket is $100, you take 5%, let's say, I'm just making up some number, that's $5. You're selling 100,000 tickets. Now you have a revenue, right? So I always say that there are two things you can do with cyber expense, right? You identify, okay, if there was a breach, what is it going to cost me today, right? The second thing to look at it is, okay, I won't have a breach, but I want to win this big customer. That customer is anyway going to ask me to do cyber. So I have clients, established clients who are like, oh, the client hasn't signed the agreement, so we'll wait for them to sign to do cyber. Okay, thank you, right? You want to pay for the cost of cyber from an income from a customer, that's fine, but at least that's your plan. You have that plan very clear in your head, right? But then you're also planned for, okay, during the time between now and signing that agreement, if you have a breach, how are you going to deal with it? So if you don't have even minimum security due diligence in place, you're going to be what? So I'll give you an example. This is a question. So if you're driving a car and you don't have your seatbelts on, what is the risk and what is the impact? Anyone?
Are in danger of dying.
Yeah, or maybe you'll have a bump to your nose. It doesn't have to be that drastic, right? You can have a speed bump and then you hit your nose to the driver's seat, and a car behind you may just come and bump you. So it can be either catastrophic or it could be a simple accident, right? But the thing is, you're exposed when you don't have the seat belt. The thing is, you're exposed when you have not spent any time doing any security. Like, for example, if you buy Microsoft license, most most email systems give you multi-factor authentication by default. You just need to go and switch it on. Like when we walk into customers' environment, even the free security stuff is not even switched on. So that is not an excuse that, oh, I don't have money, right? So if you invest some time to understand, okay, what do I need to do bare minimum? That's where you start your journey. As you grow, your investors are going to ask you, your customers are going to do due diligence on you. And when you go and talk to that enterprise customer, right? Let's say your business, Optus says, okay, we are running this big event, we want a ticketing system. The first thing Optus will ask someone like you in a ticketing, I'm using ticketing because we've got clients in ticketing systems. So it's not about, I'm not trying to target you, but you get the point, right? So we've done a lot of work for clients who do, financial services, ticketing, and so on and so forth. All startup scale-ups, some on the back of what they did with us have won multi-million-dollar contracts, right? So then they'll start asking you, okay, can you show me by an independent audit that you are compliant to standards such as ISO 27001, SOC 2, and these become deal blockers, right? Without that, they won't sign the deal with you. Or in some cases, they'll say, yeah, because they really need it and they like your product, they'll say, okay, we'll sign, but within 6 months, you have to show the certificate, otherwise the contract is null and void, right? So that's the risk you're going to carry. So these are real stories, what happens in the industry. So now we'll talk about the minimum foundation, right? So if you look at it, I talked about identity and multi-factor authentication. So that's the basic, right? Like basic, right? You log into username, password, it sends you an authenticator code. You enter that authenticator code on your mobile, or you have a hard drive, or you get an SMS or an email saying, please enter this code to verify who you are. Backups are taken and tested, right? This is the second biggest misconception. I have everything on Google Cloud and I am safe. I have everything on Azure and I'm safe. And thank you for agreeing with me, because this is a misconception. Now, most of you raised your hand saying you're in IT, you probably appreciate it. But I work with startups, scale-ups, where the founders have no IT experience. They are brilliant. They're great business people. They have great ideas, and they've gone and hired a coder who can code, but they don't understand what backup is. Why do I need a backup? Didn't we put everything in the cloud? So cloud backups is also critical, right? If you don't have a backup, and for some reason, and we have heard now AI systems are talking to all these clouds. There was an instance where somebody gave authority to Claude to say, you can take all action without permission. And in one loop, it went and deleted all customer data, right? And there was no backup. So when you're using automation and AI tools, if you don't have backup or you don't have proper controls there, if you lose your data, you lose your data, and then you're back to square one. Your startup is again a startup, right? It impedes you from scaling up. Next is device patching, right? When you get a phone, every few months you get a notification that please upgrade to the new version. Now, some people say, oh, this is Apple's way of, or Android's way of upgrading my phone so that my phone becomes slow and then I can't use it. Yes, you cannot upgrade and take that risk. But most of the patches which come on the phone say there is a security update along with it, apart from feature update. So if you don't patch your devices, if you don't patch even your cloud workloads, if they're not patched or updated, you would never know what vulnerabilities exist, right? And what is the role of a hacker, right? The hacker is like, okay, I look at this building, it's pretty cool, a lot of glass and wooden windows. The first thing they're going to say is, how can I enter this building? So 2 years ago when I came here, I had to swipe my card. Now, because there was an issue with the door, we said, okay, it's a nice university community. You can press a button and enter this door. The first thing the hacker is going to think is, okay, there's no access control here. I can press the green button and get in, right? And we have accepted that risk as the community here, but that is not something you are going to accept there, right? You're going to say the hacker's like, okay, if there's a vulnerability, how do I exploit it and get in there? Because always remember the hacker's role. Not every hacker is out there saying, I want to look cool that I broke into NASA or whatever. They are there for a reason. They're running a business. They want return on investment. If they spend 5 hours, they want $500,000, right? So they are working for money, guys. They're just the bad guys working for money. They have a boss to report to. They have bills to pay too. They're not there to just have fun. So if you don't patch your systems, you're making an open door for them. Then one day you say, okay, I'm ready now. Let me go hire my marketing team, right? Oh, I need a finance team. And then somebody gets an email to click a link, and they're not IT literate or cyber literate. That link clicks, it says, enter your username, password. This has come from IT. And we've had numerous cases. Even today, we are in 2026. I have finance directors calling me saying, oh, my finance guy clicked on this link, gave away the password. Now they have access. They've got into our bank accounts and transferred money, right? Even in 2026, this happens. So training and awareness, it's like, if you don't have it, you don't have it. It's as simple as that. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Like, you can't just say, oh, I trust my guys, they have common sense. They'll not click on the link. So even our company, every month, there is a curated email sent to me by my IT team to see whether they can catch me, whether I click on a link. So I have two options: click on the link, or there is a button called notify phishing email, right? Thankfully, till now, I have not been caught. But they're trying their best to catch me, because it's not about making me look bad. It's about empowering my muscle memory. Because I'm dealing with 10,000 different things. I'm running two businesses at the same time. I've got sales, marketing, HR, finance, all report, and operations reporting into me. My brain is like running at 100 miles an hour. It's very easy for me to click on a link. So I'm flying to US and Canada this weekend. Last night, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I've not done my visa. I go onto Google, I search. I've landed. I've picked the first websites, right? And you can see how simple it is. The first websites which come are mostly non-US government run websites and non-Canadian government run websites trying to sell visas through their portal. It will cost you 4 times. You just need to pay a little bit of attention to say, okay, where is this going, right? I got caught out. I went to the last slide and I'm like, why does the visa cost $200, man? Like, there's something wrong here. And that's when it clicked. I'm like, okay, this is not a US government website. Luckily, I didn't save any of my data. I did give the data, but luckily it was not saved. I canceled the process, got out, went through the hard process. But these government websites have made it so difficult for tourists to apply. These other people are making. But imagine, it's very easy for a hacker to just have a link which looks like a US government website. You upload your passport, you upload your live photograph, you upload all your other details. You're just giving away the data without even realizing. So training and phishing is so critical, right? And phishing simulation, that's sending a phishing email to see whether, so that's something you can implement. Written policies, right? People say, oh, what's a policy? It's some Word document, who reads it? Yeah, but it's a policy. So I'll start with a simple policy, right? If you start a startup, the first policy you should have is the passwords we're going to have is going to be complex passwords, minimum 8 or 10 characters. And we're going to have, definitely every user will have multi-factor authentication. Third policy you'll write is every user will have their own user ID and password. James and I will not share this thing called admin user and admin password, because we are too lazy to use our own username and IDs to go into that server, right? So 3 policies you can write, right? It's one document. It's one Word document. You save it and you say, that's my access control policy. It's not rocket science. And a lot of people say, and today you have AI. AI will give you 400 policies, and then you're like, okay, where do I start now? But you can still ask AI, just give me a simple one-page policy for information security. What is the bare minimum needed? You can use that, right? If you're in that real startup state. And the last thing is monitoring and response, right? Please, like you can do a simple check. Go into the back end of your email system and say, who's logged in when, right? Okay, why is this person logging in this odd hours, right? Is it that person themselves or is their account being hacked, right? Create some rules in the back end of the system. If you guys are IT, you should be able to do this, right? You don't need a cybersecurity expert to come and tell you. This is basic knowledge, right? We work with startups who are they're like really smart tech guys, right? We go in and they're like, oh, why do we need monitoring? We are monitoring, they're monitoring their application, but they're not monitoring the security of their application. Big difference. All right, moving on. So compliance doesn't mean security. Security doesn't mean peace of mind. You got to have all the three in place, right? So compliance is on piece of paper. You're saying, okay, I've checked all of these things. So I'll tell you the simple example of compliance. So you just wrote a policy, right? We all wrote a policy just now. Agreed? The policy was we'll have complex passwords, 8 to 10 characters minimum. We'll have MFA switched on, right? And we'll use, come on, help me out. This is not a television show. You can speak to me. I'll respond. And the third one was you'll use unique username passwords for every access, every individual, right? That's your three policies. So when I come as an auditor, I'm going to say, okay, show me your policy and show me in the back end, in the system, have you actually implemented this policy? So you'll open the back door of Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace and say, here you go, Ajay, MFA switched on. Minimum password characters is 10, right? Unique username password for all users, right? You passed your compliance test right there. But then, because I'm a pretty tough auditor, I was like, okay, show me a list of all the users who have MFA and show me whether the policy. That is the security part of it. And 9 out of 10 times we find when companies, all the big wigs say, oh, we don't have time to do MFA, we're too busy, right? MFA is for the developer and the IT guys. So 9 out of 10 times we walk in, the policy says MFA, but because the CEO and the C-level say, oh, MFA is too tough, it's wasting my time, they go and switch it off for that individual user. So you're compliant, but you're not secure. You get the difference? So you can be compliant on paper, but are you actually secure? And then peace of mind is knowing that someone owns it, right? You got compliance, you got security, you got both being monitored and tracked. And there's somebody is overlooking it, somebody's accountable within the business. Any questions at this stage, including the online team? If you want to put some questions, I'll just take a short break of.
Yeah, of course. So we've got one question from Paris online, and the question is, what cybersecurity platform do you recommend?
Can they elaborate that question a bit more?
Sure. Paris, when you're ready, if you could just maybe elaborate on that.
Platform to do what is my reverse question.
In the meantime, I have a question, actually. I've heard this term white hat hackers quite a lot. And from my understanding, it's someone who looks to get into your system, but they're doing it for you, not against you. They're doing it for auspicious reasons. At which point in a startup's journey should they start considering hiring people who are white hat hackers?
Yeah, it depends, right? I have early stage startups do the whole shebang of compliance and security from day one, because they have to build their platform with security and compliance in mind from day one. They can't not just walk in and build a platform. Now, if you've built a platform which is now talking to real users, you want to know that, can someone really hack in and take this data of me? So the example of the UX what I gave, they never wanted to do a pen test. They were adamant, we just want compliance. Like, we don't need to do a pen test, right? And I can't speak for them anymore because they're not a client. They chose to move on, and they paid the price for whatever they have done, right? They might not have done a pen test or a penetration testing is a service you would engage a third party organization to help you identify the risk of your system as a white hat hacker who would do it because you pay them to do it in a legitimate and an authorized fashion, right? That's what you do. So when you engage them is when your system, and it's a business risk, right? For us, we have close to 100 clients on our security platform, so we have to do those tests anyway, like, because we are a security platform itself. So we were doing testing from the first line of code we wrote, right? So we can't not do testing and just get away with it, right? So it depends upon the business need and requirement, but also more importantly, what's the risk exposure there, right? So that's what it is.
Sounds great. We've got another question here from Jack, which is, do you think certification for frameworks like DSI's SMB 1001 that are targeted at small businesses and startups will catch on without regulatory enforcement, or are they just nice to have right now?
Yeah, so I have my personally I have a big issue with more and more standards coming up, right? When companies can't even do one compliance properly, the industry one and government the two go out and create more standards. They keep creating more standards and more complex set of questions. What is a standard? Standard is a list of questions. Have we done this? Have you done this? Right? It's a list of questions. You check, an auditor comes and checks whether you've done it, yes or no. It's as simple as that, right? So my issue with standards is, like, to answer that specific question, they are catching up in some spaces, but ISO 27001, SOC 2 compliance, PCI DSS has been there for 20 odd years. In fact, ISO 27001 far older than 20 years, because PCI is something when I started my cyber security journey, PCI DSS is payment card industry data security standards. That's now close to 2 decades of being around, right? So there are already well established standards. My issue with these so-called organizations, they keep creating more and more standards and complicating things, right? So pick one. If I were to make a choice, I would pick ISO 27001. It's globally recognized. SMB 101 is built, and I know the people who built it. My issue is, okay, you built another standard. What have you accomplished, right? You're saying it's for SMBs, but it's basically rehashed ISO and BCI put together and call it SMB, right? Fine. If it's serving the purpose, please use it. I have nothing against it, right? There's Essentials 8 from the Australian government, right? And there are 3 levels: level 1, 2, and 3. As you go up in level, it's more complex. So there are enough standards to choose from. Then there is also DSP program, which is the Defense Industry Security Program. You can do that. There's IRAP, which is Information Security Registered SSS program. That's for really high-end government contracts. There are enough standards to choose from. You can complicate. We have some clients who have to do like 4 standards a year and 5 standards a year, right? So.
And then just from Paris. So the question is, if you're a new startup, what platform do you need for minimum security for your website and social medias and customer info?
Yeah. So the word platform is the one I'm questioning there, because, so let me go back to the slide where I talked about the minimum foundations of every startup should have, right? So your MFA and identity sits within your email system, right? It sits with your cloud workload. So it's your GCP and Azure or AWS, wherever your cloud workloads are sitting, right? So identity sits on that platform, right? Backup also sits there, but you can bring in backup tools. So it's not one single platform which will give you all of these, right? Like, we have a platform which brings all of this info under one single dashboard for you to see but these are all different tools, right? There's no single tool which you can say, okay, I'm going to switch this on and all of these minimum things will get done, right? Writing policy sits outside, awareness training sits outside. Now Microsoft has an awareness and phishing platform they've just released. They also have device patching. So Microsoft is pretty versatile there. They've got backup solution, but my guys don't recommend their backup. We use a different backup solution. Microsoft also has monitoring, but Google also has monitoring. So if you look at between Google and Microsoft, there's a combination of what they can offer off the shelf, and there's a combination of what you'll have to find outside. When you use the word platform, platforms, mostly startup scale-ups, are using platforms like what we have, which I'll quickly show you, Stick Secure, for compliance monitoring and testing, right? So that you know where your compliance currently stands. 10 minutes, okay. So yeah, these are the slides basically. So these slides can be shared, James, with the group who have registered. So feel free to share it. There's more information. Basically, I've put, if the customer says ISO 27001, what it means, when does it mandate, right? It's an international standard for information security management, most commonly asked in Australia. SOC 2, mostly asked out of US, but we are seeing more out of here. Essentials 8 is a baseline mitigation often required for government-related work. Security questionnaires is a combination of standards, but it's just, okay, I'm going to test you on these 10 questions, right? If you're going to apply for cyber insurance, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions too, right? So cyber insurance have built their own questionnaires. Some large corporates have built their own questionnaires, right? So you can either go down the standards path, but even if you're compliant and certified to standards, customers are still asking you to complete questionnaires, right? So you can't get away with that. So what can you do yourself, right? So this slide is interesting. So turning on, as I said, turning on MFA, setting up and testing your backups, auto updates and device encryption, a basic honest security policy, running phishing awareness sessions yourself, right? You could do this. You don't need any complex cybersecurity guru to tell you to do this, right? And today with AI tools, you can ask it to build one for you pretty quickly, right? Right, and that's it. That's where you start. But if you need 24/7 monitoring, investigation response, achieving compliance, keeping evidence current. Now, this is the question: do you go hire somebody to do this for yourself, or do you outsource it, right? And that's where companies like us exist, because we can do it for half or 1/4 of the cost, right? Rather than you hiring somebody and trying to figure it out yourself, right? So this is where you define, right? Do I do it myself, hybrid, or fully outsourced? So choose when you are pre-revenue, tiny, risk is low, no customer is asking yet. That's when you sit in the DIY space. Figure it out yourself. Hybrid is your team and an expert partner. So you have some accountability. And then the last one is the fully outsourced option, where you say, like, we have a startup, we have 2 startups from the incubator who are our clients. They're like, this is not my cup of tea, man. Like, just do it. We've got to focus on our customer, what we are building for them. You guys manage our security, and that's it. It's done and dusted, right? So that's where you choose fully outsourced option, right? Now, each one have their cost. There, the cost is internal. Here, there's costs in the second hybrid. It's cost a little bit internal, and that means you have to put some effort to do some stuff. So if I write a policy for you, I'll say, hey, James, can you read it? Understand it, and I'll help you understand, but you have to sign it off, right? Even in the full outsource, you'll have to still read it and sign it, but I'm going to put the onus on you to do some activity to keep the cost low, right? The last one is fully outsourced, where we do it, right? So the next few slides is a little bit about how we get cyber done for our clients. I'm not going to bore you with this. So, with us, you get one person, one platform, one partnership. So it's all done for you. You don't have to do it yourself. The investment is predictable because we charge a simple monthly fee. And we also have like different stages. You can start like on your mark, ready, set, go plus, the title of this slide. You can start off at a very early stage with us and grow with us if you choose to, as your maturity grows. But if you get someone like a partner, you should be asking, okay, if I'm letting go of not just StickmanCyber, any partner, guys, right? This is not about StickmanCyber, but if you go to any partner, you want to know you're parting away with so much of money. You want to know how much pain and time they're going to save. That's it. There are two things, right? Pain and time. Because that pain, if it doesn't exist, your mind is free to do what you have to do to build your business. Time will also free you to go win more business. So I have a startup. There's still a startup 10 years later. The CEO is like, Ajay, I have to spend all this money. I'm like, okay, don't spend it. What is the cost? Oh, I have to spend 20 hours a week or 20 hours a month doing size. I'm like, yeah, that's your choice. You can do 20 hours. That 20 hours, would you be speaking to a client and winning business or doing security questionnaires? He's like, oh, I wish I was talking to customers. I'm like, yeah, go win your customers. No. Why do you want to become a security expert? Like, think about it. Like, in my early days when I came to Australia, I did my tax returns on my own to save $40. $40, like, it was big money for me then. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't even know what I'm filling here, right? So if I found one who did it for $60 afterwards, I'm like, yeah, you just do it. And he said, I'll get you a refund too. I'm like, oh, great, thank you. Right. So that's how you got to think, right? You're smart people. You can figure this out yourself, or you can just find somebody to figure it out for you. So 5 things you do Monday morning, right? Turn on an MFA, test your backup, write down what you do on a one-page security policy, know exactly the next deal, ask. So, find out what your customers are going to ask, preempt it. Don't wait for them to ask. If you're on a call with a customer and they're like, oh, tell me your security roadmap, you're like, yeah, we're looking at security. We met this consultant. Take my name if you want. I don't care. As long as you grow and you win your business, you say, yeah, we're looking at security. We've got our basic security in-house. We got a roadmap to do ISO 27001. We are growing. Be confident about it. Most startups sit in on a call and like, oh, we are. They start mumbling, saying, oh, we're not. Yeah, that's it. You've lost the trust with the client. We have a very clear mandate saying, yeah, security is top priority for us, like how you said, right? I started this business. I know security is top priority for me. I've done some internal stuff. We can't justify a full ISO program yet, but yeah, if the deal is right, we will invest in a full ISO program, but we are ready. We're ready to go. Be confident about it, because they're not going to test your security right after the first call, right? Then you assess the client, and if the deal is real, then you start investing in security, right? But find out what the customer will need, right? Go to their website and say, have they got their security certifications too? Because many large customers will put out their security certifications online. And then lastly, decide who owns security, right? And you should be confident. You're like, yeah, I've got my CTO, he owns security. Or if you're the lone CTO, CEO, head of marketing, head of sales, you say, yeah, I own security in the business. I have a weekly, monthly, quarterly cadence with my team to look at security stuff. Say it. You have nothing to lose, right? They're not going to come and uncover. But that's where you have to build that confidence within yourself internally and within the business. Think of you like if you're an athlete. You walk into the ground and you say, I want to play. They're like, okay, are you fit enough? That's how the customer is thinking. I'm going to take you in and let you do business with my customer base or to my business. Are you fit enough? Or are you just going to break? Yes, please.
Mid-sized companies become serious about uplifting their security postures or internal capability. What are the first one to two roles that you typically see them hire internally?
Mid-size, in my experience, very few mid-size companies never, in my view, they should never invest in internal security. It's a waste of money. That's my view. Now, some people may disagree with me, because I've seen this time and again, because you're locking the risk down to 1 or 2 resources in-house. To run a full security team, you need at least 8 to 9 people. And you're like, okay, I'll hire this one guy. His name is Ajay. He's pretty cool. He's got 20 years of experience. And your business is how big? How big is your business? How many people?
No, I'm a startup.
Yeah, but let's say you say mid-size. What is the definition of mid-size for you? Yeah, 200 people, right? You're going to hire a guy called Ajay. He's got 20 years of IT experience. You know what he's going to do? Ajay will say, okay, I need a $300,000 package, right? I need 3 security people under me because I'm the big boss here. I'm not going to go and do some shitty configuration, turn on an MFA. I'm the strategy guy. That's one option you'll end up with, right? They'll ask you for a big budget. The other option you'll say is, okay, let's get Ajay Jr., who's this nerdy techie guy who can go in and do stuff, right? Then you don't have the strategy bit. You're like, okay, this guy gets shit done, but he's not telling me what to do, what to plan for, right? So you miss that, right? So you have to find a partner who can do strategy, execution. You need 2 things. You need strategy and execution. You don't invest it in. We have clients, ASX listed, Australian Stock Exchange listed clients, 800 staff, 1,500 staff, 2,000 staff have 0 security staff. They have an IT person who looks after IT, but we manage their entire security for them for this very reason.
Since that moving forward for a lot of digital businesses, cybersecurity has to be baked in the culture of the company, regardless of the size. And when you say that they're better off outsourcing the security, who takes care of the internal, embedding of the security within the organization?
So by outsourcing, why do you think it won't get embedded?
So it's also part of what you.
Yeah, so outsourcing doesn't mean it's not embedded. We like in our business, the whole idea why we exist, why we have 500 customers, we do this for them day in and day out, even ASX list, because we are their security department. They're not outsourcing, okay, I need Ajay from your team. No, we don't even do that. We like, sorry, you don't get Ajay, right? Or Ajay Jr. or whatever else. We give them the whole security department, which is a shared services. So one person is doing monitoring, one person is doing audit, other person is doing compliance, somebody else is writing policy documents, someone else is doing testing. We've got 80 people in the company serving 500 customers a year. So we do different parts of security is done because you don't need somebody ask, okay, when do I hire a tester, a white hat? You don't hire a hacker. We do the test once a quarter, once a year, once every 2 years. Some clients very critical. They're storing like high value Bitcoins and stuff. We do hacking every day. Like we have an autonomous hacking tool which we run, and then humans are checking it, right? So baking security by outsourcing is a possibility. You're not outsourcing for a human to replace a human. You're outsourcing a capability and outcome. You get an outcome. You don't look for, okay, oh, Ajay, you spent only 4 hours this month, so I'm going to cut your invoice. No, that's not how it works. You pay a fixed fee, you get an outcome. The outcome is you get compliance, you get security, you get training, you get phishing, you get monitoring, you get testing. All of those things, what I spoke about, you're basically getting access to all of that services under one umbrella without having to go find 6 different vendors. Any other questions? Any online questions?
Okay. All right, fantastic. Well, we might finish up there, everyone. But
just one last thing, there's a QR code there. Feel free to scan it. It opens up a form. You can book a session with our team to discuss if you have any one-on-one conversations you would like to have. So feel free to use that. If you're not a big fan of QR codes, there's an email address down there called cyberdone@stickmancyber.com. If you don't like to write an email, there's a phone number too if you want to call, but you have all the options. Thank you.